They say on his day off, a postman usually goes for a walk, and a sailor heads for the nearest lake for a happy hour of rowing. My name is Mike Nelson. I'm a professional diver. Day off, what could be more natural for me than to go swimming? Of course, there's some things that make swimming more attractive at one time than at another. At this particular moment, and in this particular place, all seemed right with the world. But in another part of the city, it was a different story. The burglar alarm at the jewelry store automatically alerted the police. In a few seconds, all available units were converging on the area, while a desperate boy looked frantically for some means of escape. And the escape that he selected, a storm drain, put both of us in a very tight spot.
All right, you. Start climbing up that ladder. And keep those hands so I can see them. Now look, mister. That's a storm drain you're in. You can come out and surrender or drown. Take your choice. Two M27 at headquarters.
Headquarters by.
We've got a robbery suspect trapped in a storm drain on Park near Willoughby. Better check and see where this drain goes. See sort of a chance of him getting out somewhere along the line.
10-4.
A few minutes later, I received an emergency call from my old friend Cy Baker, Superintendent of Public Works. Cy knows everything there is to know about the city storm drains, and he knew that the young fugitive was in more than one kind of trouble. A police car rushed me to another opening in the storm drain. It was the last opening before the ocean. When a man's life is at stake, it's up to everyone to do what he can to help, whether the man is a minister of the gospel or a fugitive from justice.
I brought this map along to give you a clear picture of what goes.
Good.
Now, this main black line here is a storm drain from the mountains to the ocean. And this point here is where the suspect went in. It's a mile east of here. We call it storm drain exit number 2.
I'm with you.
Now, this is the point where we are right here.
I see.
This is storm drain exit number 3.
What makes you think he went this way? Is there an exit in the other direction, too?
A policeman followed him down the manhole and saw him start in this direction. They've been watching it ever since.
I see. What's the water situation between these two exits?
Where he went in, it's 2 to 3 feet deep. Now, in between these two exits, there are these 2 auxiliary tunnels. They're secondary drains, but this time of year, the water runs pretty high, especially after last week's storms. The water in the whole system's going up.
I see. You mean if he doesn't go back to this exit that he went down, he runs the risk of being drowned, huh?
That's right. Even if he stays put, he's liable to drown, the way the water's going up.
Well, what do you want me to do?
Well, as I see it, the only thing you can do is to go in here and work your way back toward exit number 2.
What if he's already passed this point here?
Nothing anybody can do. From here on down, it's a raging torrent to the ocean. I don't see how any man could live, even with diving equipment.
Well, we'll soon find out. I don't know what the current's like down there. It might be pretty fast. If I go down the other exit, exit number 2, the one the fellow went down, I might frighten him into deeper water.
That's right. Might be tough to catch up with him before he passes this point, too.
Well, I'll see you later, boy.
Hey, Mike, remember one thing. This fellow just tried to stick up. He may be armed.
Thanks. Throw me down my fins. a tough current, like pushing your way up a swift river. I began to doubt if I could get far enough on one tank of air. It was hard to tell how much progress I'd made in the tunnel. The current seemed to be pushing me back as fast as my swimming was carrying me forward. I was sure that I would have to go much farther before I'd get out of the strong current. I was using too much time. I'd never make it without more air. There was only one thing to do. Go back up exit number 3 and try to reach him from exit number 2 with fresh air tanks. I couldn't understand how the fugitive had escaped being swept down toward number 3 exit, unless he'd already been carried past it. If so, no one could do anything for him.
I couldn't make any headway. Here. I better try the other exit. Exit number 2.
You said yourself you might scare him into deeper water.
Yeah. Well, that drain is filled up to the top now. A man will never be able to get here without a tank in his back. Now, when I get to the other exit, exit number 2, if I get to him and if he's still alive, I'll have to take him up the other exit. We'd never be able to manage to get to this one together.
Mr. Baker here?
I'm Baker.
And you're Mike Nelson.
That's right.
This young lady is Mrs. Carolyn Tucker. Her husband's name is Warren.
Warren!
He's the kid who's down on that storm drain.
Warren! Warren!
I'd assumed that the man in the storm drain was an adult, so I was quite surprised when I saw his wife. A kid who couldn't have been more than 17. I wondered if he was any older.
Gotta get him out of there, love. I know we can work things out somehow. If only we can get Warren out of there alive.
I'm going to try another exit. I'll swim with the current. You understand? I can get him that way. Come on, let's try.
Can I come?
What do you say?
Yeah, bring her along. You come with me.
When you find him, tell him I'm waiting for him. I'll wait for him forever. No matter what he's done. Oh, if you could only understand.
I understand. You love him.
Oh, yes, I do, Mr. Nelson. I'd do anything. He's never done anything like this before. He was desperate.
I'll do my best. Throw those down, huh?
Might take him quite a while, Mrs. Tucker. I think you'd be more comfortable waiting in the car.
I want to be ready to do anything I can to help.
Now, you come on now. You don't look so good. You better sit down and relax. How is she? Oh, she's all right, I guess. How about that? Just a couple of kids. Look at the mess they're in.
How'd you find out she was his wife?
Well, he'd been missing since yesterday. She came down to the police station to report it. And the description fit that of the kid who'd made the holdup attempt.
I see.
He had his picture with her. We sent it over to the jewelry store. 3 witnesses identified him without hesitation.
Did you say hold-up attempt?
Yeah, he didn't get a thing. He walked up to the counter and pushed across a note that said, I've got a gun. Give me $100 or I'll shoot. Well, the clerk hit the alarm and dropped down out of sight, and the kid ran off.
Did he have a gun?
Well, if he did, he didn't use it. No one saw a gun.
The water kept getting higher. There was still no sign of Warren Tucker. I kept thinking about his wife, hardly more than a child. It was heartbreaking.
I just can't.
Mrs. Tucker, you told Mr. Nelson your husband had never been mixed up in anything like this before. What happened this time?
I guess it's because of the mess we're in.
What kind of a mess?
We had a pretty rough time this past year. When we were married, Warren was 17 and I was 16. We were both in high school, and his parents objected. So did mine.
So you got married anyway?
We were in love with each other. We wanted to be together.
You ran into trouble.
Trouble? I'll say. We had to quit school. Neither of our parents would help us. So we pulled up stakes and we came out here. But Warren couldn't find a full-time job. Pretty soon we found out I was going to have a baby. And we didn't have any money. We were actually hungry.
Mrs. Tucker, in this day and age, it isn't necessary for anyone to go hungry.
Warren was too proud to accept charity.
But not too proud to try a holdup, huh?
Well, I guess he just got desperate.
Mr. Tucker, it isn't right for any man to solve his problems by robbing another man.
Well, I know, but he doesn't deserve to die for what he's done. And I heard the policemen talking, and they don't think he's going to get out of that storm drain alive.
I felt a new pull in the water. It seemed to indicate that I was getting close to one of the secondary drains. Then I saw him, holding to a slim projection from the roof of the tunnel, managing to keep his head above water.
Get away from me, you! Fall back!
Warren, I've come down here to help you.
I don't want any help. I want to die.
There's a pretty girl waiting up top for you, your wife. She wants me to tell you that no matter what you've done or why you did it, she'll always be waiting for you.
I had to do it. There's no other way.
You're lucky that you've got somebody that loves you like that.
Don't come any closer. I can't go back. I can't.
You're not going to be able to hold on much longer. It's getting too deep, too fast. You're going to be swept out to sea. I won't be able to save you.
I don't want to be saved.
Think of somebody else besides yourself. Your wife.
She'll go back to her family. They'll take care of her.
Yeah, but she won't have her husband, the guy she loves.
I just couldn't stand prison. I just couldn't stand it. I'd never be able to face it. Never, never. I'm gonna get out of this mess. I'm gonna let go.
Go ahead. What are you waiting for?
I can't. God help me. I can't. I'm afraid to. I'm afraid to let go. Afraid not to. What am I gonna do?
Listen. The water's going to be over our heads in a few minutes. You ever use one of these? No. Well, you're going to have to use one now. You want to get out of here alive. I only have one tank. We're going to have to share it. You get your air through this mouthpiece. You're going to have to do what you call bunny breathing. We'll pass this back and forth. Now, this is the way it works. You have to blow on it hard before you take in your breath of air. Blow like this, hard. I get through the water in my hose. And you take your breath of air from this, and I'll hold my breath while you're doing it. And then I'll take it from you. I'll take my breath of air from it. You hold yours. You understand?
It's been so long. So long. Oh, please. Isn't there anything else we can do?
Up here, not a thing.
All right, now let's try it. Here we go, huh? I'll be with you all the time, right next to you. Here we go.
Water's getting higher every minute.
Is there any way you can block it off?
No, there isn't. If there had been, I'd have had it done a long time ago.
What can we do?
Nothing. Just a round, fat nothing.
The water had already risen over our heads. Making time against this current and under these conditions was like swimming against a tidal wave. How far were we from the drain exit, or even from shallow water? I didn't know, and what's more, I didn't want to think about it. Warren had been getting more and more reluctant to release the mouthpiece. I knew if he panicked, he'd start breathing water and drown. So I took the mouthpiece as little as possible. close to the opening now, but the situation was getting out of control. Our buddy breathing was using up the air fast. I knew that it was getting low, and having to fight him for every breath was using up precious time and energy.
Here they come. Took you long enough.
I never like to rush things.
I'm sorry.
May I?
Yes, sure, go ahead.
Mister, I want to...
You can thank me by taking good care of your wife and child.
I'll try. I mean it. I'll really try.
I know you will. What do you think they'll do with him?
It's hard telling.
He did give himself up, you know.
Well, it should make some difference.
Got a lot of guts, that kid. The way he swam in the water against the current. A kid like that shouldn't get into the kind of trouble he did. I'll bet he wouldn't if he had somebody to guide him.
I know just the guy.
Oh,
You. You could talk the judge into putting him on probation.
me?
Yes, you.
Pretty clever, aren't you? Okay, I will. Come on, Bob. Hello there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. You know, 3/5 of the world is covered by the sea. And how little most of us know about that underwater world. Go below with us again next week, huh? For another thrilling adventure in Sea Hunt.
I was directing a salvage operation on the bed of a river. A fast-moving river. Maybe too fast. I had sent a helmet diver down, but now his line was going out. He was being carried by the current. I had given the order to pull him in, but the winch backed up. His line was jammed, tangled on the wreck below. I had to go get him. To him okay, and at the risk of both our lives, managed to get him out safely. Did he thank me for saving his life? No, not a bit. He cussed me out because I wouldn't let him go back down. That's the way divers are sometimes, as I was to find out again, only too soon. I was driving up the coast. I had 2 days to kill before my next assignment, and, well, I hadn't seen Ben Crane in years. Hello there, Ben Crane.
Oh, hey, Mike Nelson. Well, Mike, it's been years,
It sure has. Too many of them. Look at this. What do you know, right here in the house? Well, I'm surprised you're not wearing it, just to keep the flies off. Oh, gee, that's wonderful to see you. You look great.
You mean I'm looking old and you can't bring yourself to say it?
Mike!
Hey, this isn't Betty. Ben, this Bet...
Yep, it's me, Mike. Oh, all grown up.
Oh, I'll say you are.
Hey, Mike Nelson.
Well, you might as well meet the rest of the crew,
Gee,
Mike.
it's good to see you, Mike. How are you?
Well, you remember little Bobby O'Mara, don't you?
Bobby O'Mara?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh, the last time I saw you were that high.
I'm breaking him into diving just like I did you.
Well, gosh sakes, look how you've grown.
Listen, Mike, I've been down in the helmet several times, but while you're here, let me try the scuba, would you, Mike? Would you?
You betcha. I'll be glad to check you out, Bob.
Gee, that's
What?
good.
Oh, Mike, I'm just fixing something to eat. Will you give me a hand? Don't talk about diving.
What?
Dad hasn't worked in a couple of years.
Oh.
They give all the work to the younger men. He can't face it, and he can't give it up. Mike, maybe if you talk to him.
Okay. When I talked to him, you could have cut the silence with a knife. As it turned out, this was the lull before the storm. Before 2 storms, in fact. One after the other. I'd like to make a suggestion to you, huh? I understand that you haven't been using this kettle of yours for the last couple of years. So, why don't you take advantage of your 30 years' experience and get yourself some men? Start up your own company, huh?
You too, huh? Think I'm getting old. You think I've lost my strength, my wind? Well, I'm as strong as ever, I tell you. Hire some men. You mean stay topside and push a pencil around some charts? Now listen to me, Mike. I was top diver around these parts for years, not a pencil pusher, and I'm still a diver, you hear? Still a diver!
The second storm blew up out of the northeast. A driving gale sweeping down like a giant hand. Down through the suburbs and the city. And out to the bay.
The total so far is 1 dead and 27 injured. Meantime, reports of damage at sea continue to pour in. Less than an hour ago, the Shaughnessy coastal freighter Little Bertha went down in the storm-tossed waters off Fallow Point. The freighter was caught in the dangerous shoals and capsized, sinking immediately. No casualties.
That was Yuli's boat.
Yuli?
You remember Yuli Olafson? He's Dad's best friend.
I remembered Yuli all right. A tough old walrus, like Ben. They were two of a kind, and pals from way back. We kept that phone busy for an hour, and drew one blank after another. No, we couldn't find Yuli, but Yuli found us.
Yuli!
Ben, I come straight to you. Yes, sir. Excuse me, but this is no time for conversation.
Yeah,
Ben?
look, Yuli, we heard it on the radio. Thank God you're safe.
Yeah. All my men are alive, too. Only one was hurt. I took him right to the hospital. Then I come straight to you. Ben, I lost my ship. You gotta help me get it up, huh? Now I call my boss and show him I waste no time. Hello? Mr. Shaughnessy? This is Yuli. Yeah. Oh, you heard about it? Yeah, well, I'm sorry. Listen, I was there, so please don't fight with me. First we pull up the ship, then we fight. Already I got the man for the job. Yeah, now you talk to him. The best diver I ever know. This is Ben Crane, Mr. Shaughnessy.
Speaking, Mr. Shaughnessy. That's right. That's right, it was me. I saved that wreck. Oh, so what if it was a long time ago? I know those waters like the back of my hand. Good. Fine, I'll take a look and give you a report.
Thank you, Ben. Now this load is off my shoulders.
Yuli, Dad, you told me once. Now, maybe I'm wrong. But I remember that wreck off Fallow Point 5 years ago. You said that was no place for a helmet diver.
Little Betty, maybe you are wrong. This diver I know from long time ago. Now, please, let him take care of it. Now I go and see my men.
I'll see you later, Yuli.
Ben, she's right. Now, you know she's right. What are you up to?
I'm sure she's right. There's a regular riptide at Fallow Point. And a helmet diver can't fight it. But a skin diver. Now, Mike, I know that you only have one day left, but so do I. Now, I can't dive on that wreck tomorrow, not till the mud settles. So tomorrow, Mike, you teach me how to skin dive. Tomorrow.
Hey, 1 day?
1 day plus 30 years. Well, what do you say, Mike? Can you teach an old dog new tricks?
I could teach an old dog new tricks, and I was darn happy to. Ben took to it right away. 30 years of experience made him a natural. I showed him how to remove and replace his mouthpiece. I demonstrated how inhaling makes you rise and exhaling makes you descend. I checked him out on all the basics, and then it was time to go topside. We came back down underneath the pier for some heavy work this time. The water was murky here, and the light dim. I halted Ben and started driving a spike into a piling. This was to be a test of teamwork. Ben was to take the line that we were carrying off to another location. I sent Ben off on his mission and stayed behind to make the line fast. Ben was out of sight, somewhere in that murky twilight world. Only the tension on the line told me that he was there. Suddenly, the line went slack. I raced in the direction that Ben had taken, searching. Ben was in bad shape. He was in desperate pain. But worse than that, he didn't know which end was up. I started him toward the surface. Your air painting you?
That's all right.
Maybe that's why you lost your sense of direction, huh?
I really goofed that time, huh?
Couldn't you clear properly?
I cleared all right.
You been having any trouble with your ears lately?
Yeah.
What kind of trouble? Infection?
I thought I got rid of it, huh?
You probably busted your eardrum down there. Ben, you know your sense of direction's in your ear.
I know.
When you're scuba diving, you don't have a lifeline to guide you like you do when you're diving hard hat. Without a good sense of direction, it's dangerous. You're not going to be able to take that salvage job, Ben. You hear me, Ben?
I hear you.
Sorry. I thought Ben Crane was finished with the salvage job at Falla Point, but I had reckoned without the old man's stubborn determination. Before dawn next morning, while the rest of us slept, he was up and moving.
Captain Olafson. Oh, Ben. Well, this is fast work. Sure. I get the diving tug. And the compressor. And the lines. Everything. Right away, Huey. Right away. Goodbye. Now take the cotton out of your ears. Are you awake now? And now listen, Bob, I want you to bring the truck around right away. That means 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay, Ben, okay.
What are you doing, huh?
Listen, Ben,
Are you with me or against me?
I'm with you, Ben, but didn't you say that Falla Point was no place for a diver?
Oh, well, never mind about that. Let's get going.
I can't.
Oh, come on, if you're not with me, then get out.
Ben?
No, I mean it. Out. Come on. This is very important.
Yeah.
Don't give me any line unless I give you a signal.
Yeah.
But if I give you a signal, you give me line.
Sure.
One jerk. Go on line.
1 yard.
4 jerks. Up by gun.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Now, diver, you go down and you say hello from me to Little Bertha, huh? Ready?
Ready.
At Fallow Point was as bad as it was cracked up to be. Ben had to fight to move across the sunken deck. Ben was pinned tight, helpless, and his lifeline was snagged. Yulie upstairs couldn't even sense what had gone wrong.
Hi!
Yeah, what is it?
Come to the phone, quick!
Who wants me? Who's on the phone?
Bob, Dad's out of Fallow Point.
Yeah, Bob. Who are you? Okay, now you stay put. We'll pick you up on the way. I'm gonna get in my wetsuit. You might as well get dressed, huh?
My regulator on, will you? All right. See if we can get him on that intercom.
Yeah.
Ben! Ben! Ben Crane! Is the answer, Yulie? No.
Kid, you don't think he...
Hold on. I got to the ship in no time, and I found Ben a moment later. I signaled on his helmet. There was no response. I didn't know whether he was dead or alive. I traced his airline back. I found where it was snagged, under a heavy pipe. I finally got the pipe free, but there was other debris in the way. I cleared what I could, and for my reward, saw air now flowing from his exhaust valve. This time, when I peered into the helmet, I could see his eyes were open. When I asked him if he was okay, he answered me. I pulled him loose and started to the surface.
Oh, yes, Mr. Shaughnessy. He went down. Over. Yes, sure. He's come up. Over. But I don't know. You'll have to talk to him. He's here. Over. He wants to talk to you. He wants to know how everything's going.
Well, you tell him I quit. Tell him I'm washed up. Done for. Finish.
No, you'll have to tell him that yourself.
Yeah, well, give me that.
Mr. Shaughnessy, everything's going fine. Over. Oh, I'm the secretary. Yeah, of the Ben Crane Salvage Company. Over. My name is O'Mara. Bob O'Mara. Over. One-man operation, I should say not. This particular job, for instance, is a job for scuba divers. We have the best crew of scuba divers in the country. Over. Take it? Of course we'll take it. We're already on it. Now, listen, Mr. Shaughnessy. We'll have that ship of yours up within a week. Well, thanks, Mr. Shaughnessy. The Ben Crane Salvage Company is known for its promptness. Over. Thanks again. Over and out.
Salvage Company? Crew? Where are they?
A week, huh? Yeah, well, I guess it'll be done in a week, huh? Where am I going to get a crew? A salvage company. Hey, come on, get me out of this thing. Hey?
Mike knows plenty of skin divers. He'll find you a crew. Won't you, Mike?
Hey, I'll be glad to give you the names of some divers, Ben. You'll have to get your own crew together, though.
Hey, give me those names. I'm the secretary.
Yeah, you bet you're gonna be the secretary as soon as we get back. And as a matter of fact, I'll give you the names on the way back. That is if Mike gives them to me.
Ben, this fella works fast, huh?
Now, let's work fast. Get about it. Hello there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. Skin diving is fun and adventure for young and old, but it can be dangerous. So know the sport well and don't take any chances. Be with you next week for another exciting sea hunt.
The underwater world and the vast reaches of outer space are curiously interrelated. For example, from underwater come algae, which are rich in nutrition and also liberate oxygen from carbon dioxide. They can thus help sustain life in the vacuum of space. My name's Mike Nelson. I was working on saltwater algae for a space laboratory, searching in offshore waters for new specimens, and also checking out desirable spots on the ocean floor for experimental farming of algae. In the course of my search, I ran across a large area covered with a type of plant that I'd never seen before. I was puzzled by its abundance. I cut some samples and loaded them into a sack for the lab. As I headed for the surface, I had no way of knowing that the harmless-looking strands of green leaf would prove almost fatal to me. In the space laboratory next morning, I got some more information on the plants that I had discovered from my collaborator, Dr. Ken Madison.
Mike, do you know the English word assassin is derived from the Arabic hashashin?
No.
Do you know what hashashin means?
Well, I'm not up in my Arabic.
Well, literally it means hemp eater, but by extension it means someone who chews the hemp to get the hashish out of it.
All this come under the heading of classified information?
All right, I'll get to the point. Hashish is one of the most violent drugs that man has ever put in his system.
Well, that's something I do know.
All right. Now, the active principle in that drug, similar to what we call marijuana, could be extracted from those plants you brought up from the bottom of the ocean.
Really? Well, the only hashish that I know about comes from Indian hemp. That grows on dry land.
Hemp is only one of a number of plants that produces narcotic resin. And whoever has developed this underwater strain has added to that number.
Well, how do you know that someone's developed it?
Because it's a hybrid. And it was produced by a brilliant job of crossbreeding. Now, the original of this plant is called cannabis. It's from the family Urticaceae.
Oh, that was from another family.
Someone has succeeded in crossing it with a marine plant, which enables the cannabis to survive underwater. And what's more important, to go right on producing that hypnotic resin. And that, of course, is what makes people see and feel and hear things that aren't there.
And they can actually process something like marijuana from this plant?
Yeah. Something that has the same effect, only probably stronger.
Boy, that's quite a setup. There could be acres of this stuff down there.
Yeah, it's kind of frightening when you think about the possibilities. Somebody could produce narcotics by the ton.
It'd be cheap, too. Cheap enough for a kid to buy it.
And underwater plants grow very rapidly. And besides, they can be sown and harvested in secret.
They could be sown and harvested, maybe. As far as keeping it a secret, I think I can do something about that. Yeah, will you give me the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, please? And I want to talk to Andy Watson there. Andy Watson lost no time in joining us. Ken and I were both amazed at the amount of interest that he displayed in our report.
It's right out there in that direction. A quarter of a mile past the breakwater.
How big was the field?
Well, it's hard to tell. You know, visibility isn't that good underwater. There's an awful lot of that stuff out there.
Well, we'd like to know more about that underwater area before we take any specific action, but this could close a troublesome open file.
Open file?
Yeah. We picked up a pusher not long ago. He had an unusually large amount of what appeared to be marijuana in his possession.
Appeared to be marijuana?
That's right. Under analysis, it turned out to be related, but more powerful.
Well, that describes our plant all right.
It describes it perfectly. The chemical analysis also indicated a strong iodine content.
Which associated it with the ocean.
Right. We figured it was stored underwater, but, well, the ocean's a big place. We searched for a hiding place of some kind, but so far nothing has shown up. The possibility of it being grown underwater never occurred to us.
So what's the next step?
Well, could you pick up some additional specimens of the plant for us?
Sure.
And can you make a survey of the general area, give us an idea of the quantity of these plants?
Well, it'd take a little time, depending on the size of the area.
When can you start?
How about now?
Well, any sooner than that would be contrary to regulations.
I piled my equipment into a small boat and headed out for the narcotics fields. I hoped to attract as little attention as possible. If this were a commercial marijuana installation, it might be under some sort of long-range surveillance. And observation I didn't want or need.
Excuse me for a minute, Ken. I'm gonna spot some men around this area just in case. Keep an eye on them.
Sure. As nearly as I could tell, this was a corner or a boundary of the narcotics field. I could see that it went off in two directions from here. As I had told Andy, I would have to circle the field to get an idea of its size.
How long can he stay down on one tank of air?
Depends on the size of the tank and the depth of the dive.
Well, he'd be in a rough spot without that boat, wouldn't he?
That narcotics field is very large. He may not be able to do the job at all.
This was shaping up as quite a project. The field was far larger than I had imagined. I swam along the perimeter, peering about for some end to it. I had worried about being observed on the surface. I didn't know what was going on much closer at hand. It was time to surface and change tanks. To mark the spot where I could resume the search, I set out a marker buoy. I had enough air left to get a few more samples for Andy Watson. The strange knob on the end of the spear knocked me for a loop. The two divers evidently thought I was out cold. I played along with the gag, even when they pulled the air hose from my mouth. Fortunately, they didn't wait around. As soon as they were out of sight, I got out of there fast. A little first aid, and I was back in business with a couple of very sympathetic listeners.
I don't know, hold it for a while.
Thank you.
You had just sent up a marker boy, huh?
Yeah, I was running low on air, and I wanted to be sure of my starting point before I returned to carry on my survey.
Was that when you were hit?
Well, it wasn't quite then. I decided to cut some plans first. It was when I was heading back to my boat that it happened.
But if they wanted to kill Mike, why didn't they use a spear with a sharp point?
Narcotics criminals are very cagey. If Mike had been obviously killed by a spear gun, it would have touched off a big investigation.
Yeah, it probably would have led to the discovery of their narcotics fields.
Exactly. They tried to make it look like an accident.
I see.
Now, lucky they did, Mike, or you wouldn't be here.
Hey, why don't we put their minds at rest?
What do you mean?
Give out word that the body of an unidentified skin diver was found drifting in the ocean. Apparently the victim of drowning.
Good. That might throw him off the track. Then we can make further plans.
Yeah, well, my further plans are already made. And it includes those two characters that tried to kill me.
It didn't take us any time to come up with a sound, workable plan. Next morning, Andy Watson and I set out to put it into effect.
Mike, my conscience tells me to try and talk you out of this.
Well, you tell your conscience to take a vacation.
But you're dealing with a powerful narcotics ring. You'll be risking your life.
Yeah, plug this in for me, will you?
Yeah.
That's it. This
Got it.
The basis of our plan was a watch on the narcotics field by sonar. I was preparing to take it down and wire it up in some central spot where it could hear the arrival of any divers who came down to harvest their illegal crop. By now, Andy and I were sure the divers weren't arriving from a boat on the surface. Andy had too many men spotted around the coastline to let them get away with that. Somehow, in some mysterious way, the divers were getting into the field without being observed. To Andy, it was just as important to trap the men responsible for the underwater narcotics as to destroy the field itself. And as for me, well, I had a score to settle with a couple of them.
Good luck. Stay out of traps.
Hey, I'll try. I'll hand in my sonar pickup there, will you?
Yeah.
It was a long way out to a likely hiding place for the sonar pickup, but I had enough wire for the job. was confident I had hidden it well. I swam back toward shore, certain that we'd see results soon. Or rather, hear them.
The sonar is working fine. So far, everything's as quiet as a mouse.
Oh, that's good.
Except for a few fish here and there. It's pretty good sized ones at that. Makes a fellow wish he had a rod and reel. I'm big enough to catch a fish or a dope grower.
Well, I found a good spot for the sonar pickup. Now all we can do is wait.
Yeah.
We took turns all through the day and then the night. Nothing happened.
Hear anything? Get some sleep for a while, huh? Let me take over.
Yeah.
Next morning, we got a pickup.
Mike! Mike! I think we got some.
Yeah, so we're down there, all right. Sounds like more than one. Let's soon find out.
This time I was armed. I hoped that I wouldn't have to use the spear gun, but I wanted to be able to defend myself if I had to. There they were, two of them, as sonar had indicated. And they were not armed, except with the knives they used to harvest the marijuana. They spotted me. I had to make a quick decision. I fired over their heads, hoping to scare them into surrender. One turned and fled. The other didn't scare easy. He came charging at me with his knife. I didn't have any more spears, but the gun helped me block the knife attack. A twist, and I had him. I cut his air hose. That would force him to the surface, where Andy Watson's men would be waiting. That left the other man to be accounted for, and he was in a hurry. I strained to catch up to him. He was tiring. He dropped his sack of marijuana. That made it easier for him. I lost sight of him for a moment. Then I saw him, swimming into the mouth of a big intake tube of some kind on the shoreline. Was this a trap? Set up for an emergency like this? Or was this the entrance the divers used to go unobserved to the narcotics field? Well, there was only one way to find out. cautiously. I could be attacked and cut off at any moment. Another tube descended vertically into this one. There was light above. I was sure that the diver had gone up this way. I went up too. I was in a warehouse of some sort. There were wet footprints leading from the manhole. The diver had escaped in that direction. I slipped quietly out of my gear. I was going to find him or else. Waiting for me.
Get over there. You all right?
I guess so. Except my Adam's apple. Well, I think it's ruined for good.
Well, the man you chased home with a bale of narcotics was Mark Merrill.
Mark Merrill? Is that somebody I should know?
Well, he's been around for a long time.
I don't imagine he'll be around much longer, though.
That's for sure.
No, he's quite a man. Crazy combination of intelligence and chicanery. You know, he admitted, not without a show of pride, that he developed the cannabis hybrid and that he leased the building with the underwater intake and set up a legal warehouse business there as a front for his narcotics activity.
It's a clever idea. The weed could be planted and harvested without anybody showing up on top of the water.
Andy.
Yeah.
Tell me, how'd you find that warehouse? And so soon, too.
Well, when I lost you on sonar, I warned my patrols, and one of them spotted bubbles and knew it wasn't a mermaid. And then when we picked up the man with the cut air hose, well, he gave us a rest.
I see.
Well, what Merrill was doing was brilliant botanical work. We could use him in the space program.
You could have.
Yeah. I think we can get along without his talents.
Hello there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. You know, 3/5 of the world is covered by the sea. And how little most of us know about that underwater world. Go below with us again next week, huh? For another thrilling adventure in Sea Hunt.
In wartime, an underwater soldier has few advantages. His only defense is a naked blade. His offensive strength, a tightly packed bundle of explosives. My name is Mike Nelson, and diving is my business. I'd been retained by a small Latin American country to train a cadre of underwater demolition experts. But you don't learn UDT in a day. Underwater, none of the ordinary combat rules apply, particularly working with explosives. The measure of safety is a shaved second. Inexperience can mean the difference between a ripe old age and a chilly grave. We got far enough from the shock wave not to be killed, but we were still shaken up by it. This was only practice. But just around the corner of time was a moment when our little lessons would pay a dividend in liberty or death. Any combat unit is only as effective as its human components. Out of the 20 men that I'd started with, I wound up with only 2 who were capable of passing on to others the knowledge they'd acquired. Tomas Vilekis, age 26. University of Princeton, wealthy family. Good diver, very quick to learn. On the surface, you wouldn't want a better man to work with. But under that aristocratic poise ran a stubborn streak. Paul Ramirez, age 28, called Indio. Orphaned since birth. High school education padded by a healthy curiosity and some years in the service. If you had to pick a word to characterize Indio, it would be happy. He had a capacity for fun. But when the chips were down, he could be as serious as a starving barracuda. There were things about this job that I didn't like, but there were also compensations. If I could see these 2 men, despite their natural antagonism toward each other, develop into a crack demolition team, I'd call it a very good job. I'm knocked with 7.
You're beat. I got 2. You're as bad as that plutocrat Villegas.
Just beat him, huh?
There was tension on my boat, all right, but it was nothing compared to the tension that was generating ashore in the capital.
Revolution. Yes, Mr. Presidente. Revolution. You do not care for the word, huh?
You may very well be forced to live with it.
Serrano, please, I have a guest.
I am not concerned with propriety. My voice is the voice of the people, and it cries out against the injustice of your administration.
Control yourself, Cesario. The only injustice that concerns you is the fact that I sit behind this desk and you do not.
I warn you, if you sign the school tax bill into law, the people will erupt.
Children must be educated whether their fathers approve or not. But beyond this, and until you sit where I sit, any law that passes will do so without the benefit of your recommendation.
Well, that might be sooner than you think. I leave you now with your mercenary.
Oh, Mr. Nelson, I should like to remind you of the history of your own country. The British hired soldiers also. But they lost the war to your own ragged farmers.
Oh, I don't think that's a very good simile.
Of course it isn't. Serrano, please leave. You try my patience.
The patience of my people is tried by your taxation. Buenos dias, Mr. Presidente.
Oh, who's that lovely character?
Cesario Serrano. He leads the strongest opposition party.
Oh, he sure wants your job. And I got a feeling that he's going to try to get it, too, one way or another.
Do not worry, Mr. Nelson. The Serranistas are strong, but they'd lack the necessary votes to win an election.
Oh, I don't mean he's going to try to get it by an election.
You mean his threats? I was a soldier. My personal popularity with the armed forces forestalls any thought of revolt. Now, shall we go on with your report?
Well, as I was saying before a little dictator busted in here, everything's coming along fine.
And these men, are they capable of instructing others?
Well, if they're not, you're wasting your money on them. Mr. President, I'm kind of concerned about this character Serrano. He busted out here like he was going to stir up a revolution.
You instruct my divers, Mr. Nelson. I will restrain the fiery Serrano, huh?
The president wasn't the only one with some restraining to do. I still had my hands full with my 2 students. The training went on. It began to look more like the real thing every day. Maybe the boys were just reflecting the high feeling all over the tiny country. Serrano was whipping up a storm about the school tax. Indio and Tomas never talked politics. But the way they went after each other on the water, boy, oh boy.
Kick me like that once more, I'll cut your throat.
We're not playing marbles, Blue Blood.
You remember what I say, huh?
I remember. Cut off my hair. Do that again, your father's money won't do you no good.
That worries you, eh?
Nothing worries me. I'm just a happy-go-lucky peon.
Like Serrano, a man of the people.
Hey, take it easy. Take it easy. Break it up. Yeah, break it up. What's with you two, anyway? What's the trouble?
The usual Mike, I guess. He resents my background. Well, maybe it's his own he resents.
This mess developing in town. You think that Indio has any connection with Serrano? Think he belongs to the party or anything?
No, I don't think so. I mean, he was in the army himself.
Listen, you two are going to be working together as a team. You've got to learn to get along with one another.
I'm sorry, Mike. All right. I'll do what I can.
See what you do.
Mike, would it be all right if I went ashore tonight? There's the loveliest senorita I met.
Oh, no, not again. Well, you're really a glutton for punishment, aren't you? How many gals do you want to date in 1 week, anyway?
How many you got?
Dawn came up clean and crisp next morning. And with it, trouble.
That I speak to you immediately.
Huh? What's the matter?
The president, he has been abducted. Serrano holds him captive even now.
The colonel laid it out for us. Serrano had made his move in the only way possible. A squad of picked men had captured the president and taken him to a fortress on an island about 4 miles offshore. Any attempt to save him would result in President Duran's death.
And that, Mr. Nelson, is why I come to you. If a plane flies overhead,
Before a boat gets too close, our beloved president is a dead man.
What makes you so certain that they're going to kill him?
Don't you see? Serrano was afraid only of the military. With the president in his power, he can nullify that threat.
So you want us to suspend operations then, huh?
Yes, Mr. Nelson.
I'd like to help if I can. Can I help in some way?
What can you do?
Well, might be able to dream up something. Try and stall him up for a while longer, huh? Until noon.
Till noon? What do you mean?
Well, if you haven't heard from us by then, you probably never will.
Hello, Barranca Fort. Barranca Fort. This is Bruno 2, emergency. Come in, Barranca Fort. Barranca Fort. Come in, Barranca Fort.
Bruno 2, go ahead.
General, listen closely. I haven't much time. An underwater attempt will be made to free Duran. I will be with the invading party. You keep a boat circling the fort. And you look for a signal from me.
What were you doing, Villegas?
Trying to get some news. What's it to you? I thought maybe I'd find out how your friend Serrano is doing.
All right, let's get started, huh? The island was guarded at every point of access. Patrol boats swept the waters offshore. It was a long swim underwater, even for experienced men. When we reached the area of the island, I took the boys down all the way. From now on, we have to play for the big chips, silent and deep. There was only one deep channel through the reefs. Our charts marked it clearly. The patrol boats were thick. I decided to give them something to think about. Indio got my message. He released a time-fused bomb on a marker buoy. As far away as possible.
¿Qué pasa? What is wrong? Answer me!
The boat, Excellency. Torpedo.
To command idiots is my cross.
Mike Nelson is an extraordinary man.
Well, soon he will be an extraordinary dead man. Should Villegas not be able to signal me, I have yet another surprise for your underwater commandos. Across that channel is a screen. A concrete and steel screen, which they could not possibly know about.
The screen gave me a jolt. If I tried to blow it, the explosion would bring the patrol boats right to us. Yet we had to get through. I left Tomas with some special orders. The screen would be no trouble to blow, but unless Tomas did as I had instructed him, we'd be in deep trouble. Tomas carried out my orders. He planted a timed charge some distance from the screen. The charge at the screen was time-fused. Indio and I had still another one to plant. We sent this one to the surface. Our objective was to create so many explosions that the defenses would be thoroughly confused. Hiding the explosion and a group of other explosions had gotten us safely through the screen. But now I came face to face with an unexpected surprise. We were within sight of the seawall at the island when Tomas suddenly swam out ahead of us. I was caught completely off guard by his move. I couldn't figure out what he had in mind. When I saw Tomas with a very pistol, I knew what he was up to. One of my boys was a Serenista, all right, but it wasn't the one that I'd expected. Tomas had planned to signal the defenses with his flare pistol. We gave them a better signal than that. We tied Tomas up on a raft and lit a smoke bomb. They could see that all right. And while they were busy trying to figure it out, we would be somewhere else. Indio and I headed underwater for the other side of the island.
did the trick, huh? Yeah. You keep him busy here now. I'll get into the fort.
All right. I'll keep him busy, all right. You get the Presidente.
Martinez! Martinez, rally to this side! The channel side!
Martinez! Martinez! Go outside. Tell Martinez I want him.
If you do find Nelson, how will you hold him?
He's only human. I have an entire company of soldiers.
You may need them all.
All right, Serrano, you're through. Don't do that. Get on that radio and tell your men to cease fire. Serrano, I'm a peaceful man, but it wouldn't take much for me to shoot a guy like you. Call off the revolver, you're a dead man. I'll count to 5. 1, 2, 3.
Mrs. Serrano.
It's been said a lot of different ways by many men smarter than I. But I guess it still goes. You can't tell a man by the way he smiles. They voted me a medal, my first foreign decoration. And they made Indio Ramirez head of a vigorous new program of underwater coastal defense. That was the real decoration.
Hi there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. Skin diving is certainly a lot of fun, and it's full of adventure. See some more of it again next week, huh? When there'll be another excursion into that fabulous underwater world of Sea Hunt.
launching pad in the U.S., a space probe made a perfect takeoff. Within minutes, a new satellite was in orbit, gathering valuable scientific data and transmitting it back to Earth. Around the globe, skilled technicians carefully recorded and tabulated the tiny artificial planet's every precious word. For a few days, all went well. Then, on a small independent island in the Indian Ocean, trouble started. The scientific team, which was monitoring the planet here, was completely frustrated by systematic jamming of the signals from space. The source of the jamming appeared to be in the waters around the island. I'm Mike Nelson, and because I was on the scene, I soon found myself engaged in one of the most baffling and dangerous underwater searches of my career. For days on end, I had the same experience while trying to track down whatever it was that was jamming the signals of our new space satellite. My radio direction finder would lead me closer and closer to the jamming transmission. Then suddenly it would cut off, dead, and begin again in another location. My RDF indicated the new location was almost a mile away. Whatever I was hunting had apparently traveled that mile in a matter of seconds. I couldn't find a thing. Not a thing.
Yes, but you must have some theory as to where this interference is coming from, aren't you?
Yes, I do. But when I get to the place, the source seems to move a mile or two away. Just like that.
Oh, impossible.
Would you like to make a dive with me and hear for yourself?
Oh, I'm not disputing your word, old man, but there's nothing on Earth that can move underwater just like that.
Listen, there's some oceanographic ships that have been out there every day. Do you know anything about them?
We have very little contact with them.
Yes, and I must admit the countries sponsoring them haven't been what you might call over-cooperative.
Let's suppose that they have one ship here, one over here, one here, and one here. Now, let's assume that each one of them have some kind of a radio jammer.
Ah, but our radio direction finder has received no interference from any of these ships.
All right. And let's suppose that they have something floating in the end of a long line. Something with a tiny, almost invisible broadcast antenna that sticks up out of the water.
And when you get close to it, they turn it off and haul it in?
That's right. And they start the interference from another ship. When I get too close to that jammer, they shut that one off, and another ship's jammer goes into operation.
This idea bears looking into.
When you go, Mike, do you mind if a volunteer comes along?
Not at all, Doctor. Be glad to have you with me. Early in the morning, though. We waited till the ships of the oceanographic expedition rendezvoused late in the day. They moored side by side. Dr. Herschel and I swam quietly under them and began our inspection. Any type of underwater jamming gear would have to be attached to their hulls. We checked the hulls carefully. Nothing. We went over all the boats quickly but methodically. Our guess had been wrong. Whatever caused the interference wasn't to be found here.
We should be receiving the planet in a minute from now. That is, if the interference doesn't start up again.
Well, it's usually blasting out long before this time, isn't it? Maybe we're going to get a break, huh?
Let's keep our fingers crossed. It's about time those gremlins got off the airwaves. Isn't that beautiful?
Beautiful. again. Our new plan involved a lot of effort, but it was systematic and thorough. I had gone underwater with the radio direction finder and homed in on a jamming signal as long as possible. When it stopped, I got a bearing on the new sound that started in the distance. Dr. Herschel and I marked the spot on the chart where I had lost the first signal. It was Dr. Herschel's turn now. He would repeat the same procedure that I had followed. He went underwater in the direction of the new bearing that I had taken. We kept at it most of the morning, taking turns diving and resting. And we began to get some sort of a picture. There were only 4 places where the sounds occurred. Just as we had learned from our earlier experience, they were about a mile away from each other. It was my last dive of the day. I was close to the jamming signal. The sound was at a peak, and so was the needle on my RDF. I knew that I was in the vicinity of one of the jammers, but I had no idea just how near. The jamming stopped. Then it started again. All of a sudden, I knew I'd found it. I started toward it, but I was never going to get there. The spear had only grazed me, but something was wrong. My whole body was numb. I was blacking out. I reached for a buoy to float me to the surface. I couldn't handle it. I grabbed for my knife to signal Dr. Herschel. It dropped from my hands. I lost consciousness completely. Dr. Herschel knew that I'd been down too long. He was searching for me. It was lucky he found me when he did. Another few seconds and I'd have drowned. Hello, Dr. Herschel.
Mike!
Dr. Wells?
Mike, are you all right, old man?
Yeah, it's okay. It's my head. Boy, I really got a pip. Never been unconscious that long before. Hi, Doctor.
The creature that stung you had a lot of venom in it.
That was no creature, Doc. It was a spear. Probably had some kind of a drug on it, too.
Yes, but you also told us about some jamming coming from jellyfish on leashes, old.
They are. Or at least something that looks like a jellyfish.
Now, I went over the whole area, Mike, and there weren't any jellyfish. Not even floating around loose.
Well, you didn't go over it well enough.
Mike, I think you ought to take a little more rest. Where are you going?
Swimming.
Now?
Yes, now. I'm gonna get you one of those jellyfish, or that spear, or both.
going too.
Both Dr. Wells and Dr. Herschel were skeptical about the spear. But Herschel was a good guy, and he was willing to go along with me. We separated near the spot where I'd gotten in trouble to search the area systematically. I was the one who found it. I tapped a signal on my tanks. There was no doubt about it. This was the spear that had knocked me out. Now to take it topside and find out just why it had had so violent an effect.
You find out anything at the lab?
The spear was poisoned. Deadly poison. Enough to kill a man.
It was extracted from a sculpin and applied to the spear with a waxy, waterproof mixture. I figure there's only one group around here with a marine know-how to come up with a thing like that.
The oceanographers. We should make a report to the authorities.
I've already talked to the governor. He's not prepared to take any action until he has more conclusive proof of an illegal act.
How much proof does he want?
The spear wasn't enough.
Well, he probably wants to see one of those jellyfish in the end of a leash. That's what I'd like to have, too. How about you?
I would, too.
Let's go jellyfish hunting, huh?
Right.
We knew where to look on this trip. The thing, whatever it was no longer in operation at the spot where I'd been clobbered. But 3 others were, and we had no trouble now finding one of them. We watched it descend. Then we moved in to inspect it. It did look like a jellyfish, all right. Now that it was down, it looked like a jellyfish on a rock. But the whole thing was clever camouflage. The jellyfish was man-made of plastic, and the rock was the device that controlled its ascent and descent, and probably sent out the jamming signal. Inspection showed it was easily portable. We decided to take it topside for a thorough examination.
Most diabolical thing I've ever seen. Look at that. That's pretty ingenious, huh?
Artificial jellyfish that floats a radio antenna to the surface, extending it clear out of the water.
Gotta be a catch here someplace. Miniature radio transmitter.
Probably operated by remote control.
What turned it off? Huh? Wound it down to the bottom when we got near it. That wasn't a remote control.
There's your answer. An electronic sensing device with a built-in cutoff that operates when anything as large as a man approaches. It sends a cone-shaped beam right up to the surface.
Ah, so that's why we could get nearer to it when we swam in deeper. This ought to be all the evidence we need.
Ah.
Hey. Maybe there's only 2 more of these jammers left out there, huh?
We had 4 spots plotted. This one's gone. The one you saw the other day's been removed. Maybe.
Shouldn't be too difficult to find them now. What do you say? Want to give it a try?
I certainly do.
Okay, you look for one, I'll look for the other.
Right.
Our plan was simple, and it seemed logical. Find the 2 remaining jamming units, put them out of business, and then let the authorities know the score. We figured without one important element, that we might be under observation by the Oceanographic Group.
We must hurry. All ready?
Oh, they'll wait.
They can't wait. Nelson and the doctor are already looking for those other machines.
You promised not to use explosives.
When it comes to the scientific work, you are the leader. Do what you want. In other matters, I take charge. Don't interfere.
It's only that I don't want any trouble.
Be no trouble. There will merely be 2 insignificant underwater explosions. Nothing more. Let's go.
Dr. Herschel and I had to search for the jamming gadgets. The Oceanographic boys didn't. They knew exactly where to go. They knew exactly what to do, too. This device was a booby trap, which could kill anybody within a few hundred feet. They armed it and planted it under the jammer so that a slight movement would set it off. Dr. Herschel and I were now in the area where we knew the 2 remaining jammers were located. We split up, each heading for one of the jammers. Meantime, the enemy crew had reached the second of their weird units and proceeded to booby trap it in the same way as the other. When I found the first jammer, I went right to work on it. My intention was to put it out of business the simplest possible way, by breaking open the watertight seal, letting the seawater in to flood the delicate circuits, and short them out. I didn't know that I was within inches of blowing myself to bits. Suddenly, I saw it. I knew what it was immediately. In my own experience with underwater demolition, I'd planted plenty of these myself. I held it down good and tight. These things worked on pressure. If I let go, I'd be a very dead duck. Very gingerly, I disarmed it. Now I could finish working on the jamming device. I had to move fast. Dr. Herschel, I was sure, would be up against a booby trap, too. And the odds were 100 to 1 that he'd never recognize it. I tried with the RDF to get a bearing on the other jammer, but there was no response. That meant Dr. Herschel had already reached it, and it had stopped transmitting. Now it was more urgent than ever that I get there. When I finally caught sight of him, I was afraid that I was already too late. He was working busily on the seal, unaware of the danger. I pounded on my tanks to get his attention. If he triggered that booby trap, we'd both be killed. He didn't get the message. I darn near flew the remaining distance. I practically knocked him away from the booby trap. I breathed easier when I finally disarmed this baby. I don't think that Dr. Herschel really understood what was going on, or how close to death we'd both been. It was only later, after we'd gotten topside and were waiting for the man-made planet to come within our range, that I explained what he'd really been up against.
Are you sure that thing's perfectly harmless, Roman?
I'm sure. Why don't you keep it as a souvenir?
No, thanks, Mike. It's enough for me just knowing those jellyfish are gone for good.
Along with those men that planted them, and that fellow who speared you. My only regret is that they got off unpunished.
I wouldn't be too sure about that, Doctor. They were sent here to do a job, and they failed. Where they come from, you know what happens to them for that.
Dr. Wells? Mike, listen. Our planet's coming in loud and clear.
I could listen to that forever.
Oh, you do that, Doctor. I'm gonna go pack. I'll see you all at dinner, huh?
What's got into him?
I think Mike's heard enough beeps and squeals to last him for a good long time.
Oh, some people just don't have any musical appreciation.
Hi there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. Skin diving is certainly a lot of fun, and it's full of adventure. See some more of it again next week, huh? When there'll be another excursion into that fabulous underwater world of Sea Hunt.
Outside an underwater cave off the California coast, 2 divers unfurled a tough, wiry net. A few moments later, a 3rd diver emerged from the cave. Before he knew what was going on, he was deliberately enmeshed in the net. He wasn't released from it till he was dead. I didn't know the divers, and nobody knew what had happened. But I was on active duty with the Coast Guard at that time. I'm a member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary. And the death resulted in my being summoned to a handsome beach house a few days later. As I walked to the house, I had no idea that I was even then inviting my own murder. Commander Steve Barnes of the Coast Guard was waiting for me at the beach house.
Mike, did you ever hear of Dr. James Calvin?
James Calvin? Oh?
He was quite a guy. He served with my dad during the war in Chemical Warfare Division. Afterwards, he became research director for one of our big chemical companies.
Oh, that does sound like quite a guy.
About a year ago, he retired and he built this house.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. 2 weeks ago, his body was found floating in the ocean about a half a mile. The autopsy indicated accidental drowning, but I just can't go along with it.
Why not?
Well, for one thing, he was a fine swimmer, an expert diver.
Happens to the best of us, you know.
He was wearing a wetsuit when they found him. No scuba equipment.
Could have been just skin diving.
Well, there's another thing. His daughter arrived yesterday just in time for the funeral. She's in the lab now going through her father's things. She told me something that tends to back up what I believe. I want you to listen to her and give me your opinion.
Okay.
And don't say anything about my suspicions. She's having a rough enough time the way it is.
I understand.
Patricia? Mike Nelson is here. He's commander of the Coast Guard underwater flotilla and an expert scuba diver. Do you want to talk to him, or would you rather I explain things?
I'll be all right.
You sure?
Tricia, this is Mike Nelson. Mike, Calvin.
Tricia, I wish you'd read Mike that section of the letter that you read me yesterday.
Dad wrote me some time ago. He was working on a Project B. He was very mysterious about it, but last week he wrote me this letter. I have finally found what I've been looking for to perfect Project B. It only holds out for a few minutes, but then the first flight of an airplane only lasted 59 seconds. To keep away from prying eyes, I've fitted up an underwater lab that will be peak-proof, and I'll make my final test there. When you come to visit, I may have good news for you.
That's your cue, Mike. I want you to try and find that underwater lab.
Tell me, did you find anything in the lab here that might give us an idea, you know, a clue of some sort?
Just a lot of plans and drawings I don't understand.
May we see them?
Of course. He's apparently been working with various gases, both active and inert.
Well, you know about these things, huh?
I'm a chemist myself.
Oh, here's something I understand. A rebreather.
What's a rebreather?
Oh, you know what happens when you breathe from a tank underwater.
Well, I couldn't explain it technically.
You inhale compressed air, mostly nitrogen and oxygen. Your body uses up the oxygen and exhales nitrogen and carbon dioxide.
Oh, that's very good. Now, with a rebreather, something is used to absorb the carbon dioxide and to recirculate the nitrogen.
But you have to add oxygen.
Where's that come from?
A diver carries a tank of pure oxygen.
Unless what?
Unless a person could find a way to extract the oxygen from the water. Looks like that's what your father was working on.
A few days later, with the aid of the drawings and the help of Patricia, who turned out to be a right smart gal, I managed to assemble a duplicate of Dr. Calvin's Project B. It looked good, and it looked practical. But there was one thing that puzzled us both. A circular opening threaded on the inside. Something besides the cap was supposed to screw in there. What? This was the only point in which the plans were vague. Meantime, I had hooked up a CO2 absorbent of the kind used before on rebreathers. The rest of the device resembled a regular rebreather, with one big exception. There was no oxygen bottle. There were 2 electrodes leading to batteries. They were obviously designed to produce oxygen from the surrounding water by electrolysis. It was more like a fish's gill than a rebreather. The problem was power. Electrolysis uses a lot.
I'm going to take this down the ocean.
I'll go with you.
All right, come along.
Along with her other accomplishments, Patricia was a first-rate diver. That came in handy. She could observe what happened on the outside of the gill. I breathed from the gill. It worked better than I expected. I wasn't getting quite enough oxygen, but I was breathing all right. Then I got into trouble. The oxygen stopped flowing. I signaled for help. Patricia gave me air. Me buddy breathed on the way up.
Well, it worked fine for a minute. It needs more power. And even if we do use more powerful batteries, we still won't be able to perfect it till we find out what the missing part's supposed to be.
How do we go about that?
I think it's about time that I start looking for that underwater lab that your dad mentioned in his letter.
Good idea.
So, while I'm down looking for the underwater lab, why don't you go home, and take a look around the lab there. Something missing from this device. We won't know much until we find it.
No.
Okay.
I hoped the underwater lab might give some clues to the missing part of the gill. There was only one hitch. First, I had to find the lab.
Hello, are you Patricia Calvin?
Yes.
I'm your neighbor from up on the hill. I'm Martha Loring.
Oh, Mrs. Loring. Oh, yes, Dad wrote me about you. Oh, please, come in. Please, come in and sit down, Mrs. Loring.
My dear, I can't begin to tell you how shocked I was when I heard about Dr. Calvin's death. We had become quite good friends.
Dad told me about you.
His sudden passing was a great tragedy.
A tragedy. And a mystery.
A mystery?
Oh, they tried to keep it from me for a while, but I finally found out that they think Dad's death wasn't an accident.
They?
Mr. Nelson and Commander Barnes of the Coast Guard. You see, Dad was working on a special device of some kind when he was drowned. And we're trying to find out exactly what it was.
Oh, my dear, that's a frightful thought.
Did Dad ever mention anything to you about a Project B?
No, he never mentioned his work.
Well, we think we have it pretty well figured out.
When you say we, do you mean Commander Barnes?
Oh, no, Mr. Nelson. He's here helping me.
I see. My dear, I think you're wonderful to be so brave and calm under such a tragedy. I'm sorry I can't stay longer, but let's get together soon for a real good chat.
Oh, I hope we can. I appreciate all you've done for Dad, and, well, I'd like to find some way to express it.
When I saw the cave entrance, I was sure that I had found Dr. Calvin's underwater laboratory. The flare showed me the inside of the cave. When I found the light, I knew that I was in the lab. This was quite a setup, 75 feet below the surface. No wonder Dr. Calvin had called it peak-proof. I saw nothing to verify Commander Barnes' theory about Dr. Calvin's death, and I had found nothing that might help me complete his underwater breathing device. Suddenly, I looked to the roof of the cave. There, wired to a hunk of buoyant plastic, was what I'd been looking for. As I examined it, I became more and more certain that this was the missing part of the gill.
Well?
Wasn't as slick and Calvin as you think. And they suspect Calvin was murdered. And they know he was working on an important project before he died.
They know what it was. They've duplicated it. We watched them testing it earlier today.
What do we do now?
Look! He must have found the cave. He has the container.
We searched that cave from top to bottom.
He found it and we didn't.
What next?
Sit tight, keep our eyes open. Still don't know what Calvin was using for a catalyst. They figure that one out, we're going to need that net again.
Now, one end of the problem was sealed up. The container I found in the cave fit the gill perfectly. But as far as I was concerned, the other end was wide open. What was the container for?
Mike, as I watched you in the water this morning, I noticed this was the escape hatch for the hydrogen, freed by electrolysis.
Yeah?
And it made bubbles as it escaped from the gill.
Yeah, the hydrogen has to pass through this container, and the container wouldn't be there if there wasn't something important supposed to be in it. Something different from a CO2 absorbent.
Mike, you know what a catalyst is. A chemical that causes other chemicals to react to each other. This must be intended to hold a catalyst. So that when you breathe out carbon dioxide and the gill gives off hydrogen, it converts it into a compound that's washed away in the water.
And there wouldn't be any bubbles.
Oh, no bubbles.
Oh, with something like this, a scuba diver would be able to remain underwater indefinitely and undetected.
That must be the essence of Dad's idea.
Well, now the big problem is what did he use for a catalyst?
Let's go on and search some more. Found in the jar marked sodium chloride.
Sodium chloride? Well, that's the strangest looking table salt I've ever seen.
It's green and flaky.
What do you suppose it is?
I couldn't tell without analysis. But this could be Dad's catalyst.
Let's find out. Put some in a container and test it in the tank, huh?
I blew through the tube. The container with the green stuff in it was hooked up to a hydrogen bottle. And we were right. Not a bubble emerged, no matter how hard I blew. The chemical reaction evidently converted the hydrogen and carbon dioxide into a soluble organic salt, which dissolved in the water. This was, no question, Dr. Calvin's catalyst. I decided to take the Gill to the underwater lab, where I could test it now in comfort and with facilities to make any necessary adjustments.
There's no mistake. He's got it now. It's over his shoulder. He's taking it into the water. Get the net. I'll be with you in a minute.
Right.
Watch the girl. Under no circumstance let her interfere, even if it means being seen.
I could understand now why somebody had wanted Dr. Calvin dead. From a military standpoint, the value of this device could be enormous. A whole army of swimmers could approach a coastline without a single bubble to reveal their presence. I realized what a mistake I'd made in not being more alert. Now I knew what had happened to Dr. Calvin. He had been trapped just as I was and held in the net till he drowned. It looked like I was in for the same fate, and for the same reason, to get hold of the Gill.
Loring. It's a lovely afternoon. I thought I'd drop by for a chat.
You'll have to excuse me, Mrs. Loring. I'm a little worried about Mr. Nelson. I want to get on my wetsuit and call the Coast Guard. Will you excuse me?
Put down the phone, Miss Calvin. I'm sorry, but if you try to use that phone, I'll shoot. Put it down.
I don't understand, Mrs. Loring. I was only thinking of Mike. He's been down there so long.
So far, they'd made no attempt to deprive me of what little air was left in my tank. I had some flares in my belt, but if I made a move for them, I knew what would happen. Time was running out. If I didn't make some move soon, I'd drown. If they caught Patricia before I could get free of the net, we'd both be finished. But I had swum alongside Patricia, and I knew that she'd take considerable catching.
Trapped down below.
Him! Holding you! All right, come on up out of there!
I gotta go back. Mike is down there, trapped in a net.
Is that all of them?
That's all of them.
Did you get Mrs. Loring?
The woman in the house?
Yes.
Yeah, we got her. Say, Patricia, who taught you how to tie a knot?
Fell I know, in the Coast Guard.
I thought so. Took two of us to get her untied.
I guess we know the truth now about Dad's death.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. The only consolation, I guess, is that he gave his life to save others. Maybe thousands of others. Hi, I'm Lloyd Bridges, inviting you to join us for another action-packed story of underwater adventure 1 week from today.
Great chunks of man's history have been unearthed in caves in southern Europe, where the fossilized remains of our ancient ancestors have been discovered. Now, I was engaged in a search for an underwater cave, where a find of equal importance had been reported. I had been hired to verify the findings. I discovered something else. No ancestor this, but a living, breathing mermaid, fully equipped with scuba and spear. No doubt about it. She was guarding the cave that I was supposed to investigate, and she wasn't about to let me in. I had heard about her. Her name was Anne Prescott. She was the daughter of the cave's discoverer. I knew that she meant business, but I felt if I could talk to her, I might get some results. I signaled her that I'd like to have a little chat with her. She wasn't interested. I decided to play it sneaky. I reached for my air valve, as if I were in trouble. She was a long time taking the bait. I couldn't hold my breath forever. There's an unspoken bond between divers, even when they're enemies. Anne Prescott acted by instinct. She shared her air with me. Together we started for the surface. From now on, it would be tough to keep in mind that we were on opposite sides of the fence.
Thanks. Listen, why'd you come aboard and rest a minute, huh?
I'm not tired.
Well, let me at least take you over to your boat.
The only thing you can do for me, Mr. Snoop, is stay out of my sight.
Hey, now wait a minute.
Mr. Nelson. Mr. Nelson. Doc Barrington, call on the radio. He wants to see you right away.
Okay, thanks. Tino, what do you think of that girl, huh?
Miss Prescott? She's just a girl.
I thought you Latins were romantic.
It's too hot. Hey, looks like we got company.
Yeah, sure does. Hey, call Barrington. Tell him I'll get in touch with him later, huh?
Right.
Oh, and you're on back down here. Keep your eyes and ears open, huh?
Will do.
You're Nelson. That's right, Mike Nelson. I didn't get a chance to thank you. I'd have been a bad way if you hadn't shared your air with me.
That's all we have in common, Mr. Nelson. Breathing.
Oh, thanks anyway.
My daughter tells me you're curious about our cave down below. Please, Mr. Nelson, do me a favor. Stay away until my work is finished.
Maybe I can help you in some way.
Help? That's the way it was before. Spare me your help, please.
How do you mean, the way it was before?
15 years ago, my father discovered a significant pocket of artifacts believed to be from the ancient Cro-Magnon culture.
That's good, isn't it?
It's very good. The find was of immense importance.
Great. What's that got to do with this one?
The find was falsely discredited by one of the men sent to authenticate the findings.
Well, I don't blame you for feeling that way about it, but just because it happened once doesn't mean it's going to happen again.
Perhaps not, but I'll take that chance.
Dr. Prescott, all I want to do is...
I know. Authenticate the findings. You and the Paleontological Society.
This is my helper, Tino.
We know Tino.
Hello, Miss Prescott. Mr. Prescott. I'm working for Mr. Nelson now.
Yes, I know. We'd have liked to kept you on, Tino, but we just couldn't afford it.
I was saying, Dr. Prescott, I'm only trying to do what I've been hired to do.
Yes, to spy on my father. He got to the cave just after you left. He wanted in badly enough to swim right up to my spear.
Now, tell me this, Dr. Prescott. How are you going to get credit for your discovery unless somebody checks it out?
I'll take that risk. No one enters the cave until my research is finished.
That's because of what happened last time.
Exactly. Come on.
Hard to believe a man like that wasn't a good, solid citizen. But you never know about people, especially when ambition bites them. I was as far as ever from completing the job that I'd been hired to do. And my bosses were waiting for me ashore.
Dr. Barrington, all right if I come in?
Well, yes, come in.
I'm sorry I'm late. I got here as fast as I could.
You're very late. Haven't much time to get this job done.
The International Society has slated the executive meeting on the Prescott discovery for next week.
You see, we've got to have your report quickly. Did you get a look inside that cave?
Yeah, I got to look at it, but not in it.
Well, couldn't you have looked inside? At least long enough to see if there were any signs of excavation in there?
I tried, but there was a guard at the entrance.
You say guard?
Complete with spear gun. And Prescott.
Well, now.
Guard? It's very strange.
That's what I thought, too.
Can't you find any other way of getting in there?
Those samples are pretty important to you, aren't they?
They're the best way we've got to determine the age of the fossils and the artifacts that Prescott has found.
And the exact layer of bottom that he found them in.
Let's figure out what we can do here now, huh?
I never could get it straight about the fossils. It seems that big discoveries have been faked from time to time. When that happens, the whole history of man is thrown out of whack because everybody evaluates the finding against the overall picture. Barrington didn't seem to really suspect Prescott of cheating. He just wanted to know the score. But Leslie, well, he seemed to be dead certain. To keep the Prescotts away from the cave, I had made a flimsy excuse to send Tino to their boat. I knew that would excite enough anxiety to keep them busy. Any employee of mine was bound to be suspicious in their eyes. While they kept an eye on Tino, I'd slip down, get into the cave, and get those samples for Barrington and Leslie. I hit bottom, and once again I was in for a surprise. Another diver, and apparently he didn't want to stick around for any social amenities. I went after him, but he had a good start on me. All of a sudden, that ocean was as empty as a desert. Not even a fish in sight. Who was this mystery diver? What was he up to? Now I'd have to work with one eye on my back, not knowing who was down there with me. Or, more important, whose side he was on. As far as the Prescotts were concerned, my plan had worked. Nobody was guarding the cave this time. I swam right into the eerie darkness. But I was under pressure. Dr. Prescott or Ann might turn up at any time. Or the mystery diver might appear. I found a light. That made things easier. No doubt about it. Somebody had been digging here. The cave floor was littered with implements and with fossil chips. Pretty careless, I thought, leaving these bones lying around so casually, if they were so valuable. Time was pressing. I had to get what I needed and get out. I investigated the sack. It contained a plastic bottle which I could use. It also contained some more fossils. Samples of the earth formations that made up the cave floor were just as important as the fossilized bone chips. Their age would help the scientists determine the age of the fossils. I scooped the earth into the bottle. I had samples now of everything that I needed. So far, I had not been discovered. It was time to get out of there before I was. I started for the surface to deliver my samples to Dr. Leslie.
Well, Dr. Leslie, what do you say?
You're sure that all these samples came from inside the cave?
That's right.
The chips are faked. And the femur. Strangely enough, the ooze samples are from the Miocene age.
Well, that would mean that the skull was authentic.
Yes. But you can't get around these fakes.
I agree. Definitely spurious. Well, there's no sense of pursuing this matter any further. It's embarrassing enough as it is. Do you want me to make out the report, Doctor?
Yes, please.
What do you plan to say?
Just the facts. The original skull would definitely suggest a new line of development to Cro-Magnon man, if found in that cave. We can now say that the entire find was planted, based on the evidence that you uncovered.
Dudley, there's something here I don't like.
That you don't like? That's a hoax, Frank, as you suspected all along.
You're right, Dudley. To think that Prescott could go so far.
Do you believe facts as a scientist?
Yes.
Speaking of facts, this one might interest you. There was no one guarding that cave down there this time. But I saw another diver down there, and it wasn't one of the Prescotts.
Do you suppose that somebody else is interested in that cave?
There's no one else that would have a motive.
Just because I happen to find those fake fossils down there doesn't necessarily prove that Dr. Prescott put them there.
You know, your point is well taken, Nelson, and I'm going to go along with it. Now, all you have to do is go down there and hide, and wait till you catch him in the act.
Him? Who's him?
Prescott, or whoever it is. A hireling, probably. Just catch them in the act of either digging or planting a fake. You got it cinched.
Okay.
Catch them in the act and we could close the case. It made sense. But it was easier to say than do. There was Ann again. And her spear. And just as determined as ever to keep me out of the cave. I signaled to her that I wanted to talk. She was in no mood for conversation. I kept indicating that I wanted to go to the surface with her and talk. And she kept pointing her spear gun at me. I took a chance. Ever so slowly, I moved in and pushed the gun aside. Now, when I repeated my request to talk, she signaled, wait a minute, and swam into the cave. She returned with her father. Dr. Prescott took over the sentry duty. She swam up with me.
You want aboard, huh?
What's this all about?
Come on. I'll tell you when we get there.
Okay. Since we've had the formal chatter, I repeat, what's so important?
Tino, take these tanks of mine to shore and have them refilled, will you?
Say, Mr. Nelson. I understand.
Why so mysterious?
I'll come right to the point. I was in that cave this morning. I picked up some specimens. Dr. Barrington and Dr. Leslie tell me that they're fakes.
My father is certain this find is authentic.
The find might be, but those samples are phony.
Here we go again.
What do you mean, here we go again?
20 years ago, Dudley Barrington did some field work in the mountains of eastern France. He came up with a Cro-Magnon skull, which made him very famous.
Yeah?
5 years later, my father discovered a skull which disproved everything Barrington claimed. Should have.
Why didn't it?
Because father was sold out by some men who could have validated his find. Practically drummed him out of the profession.
What you're saying, then, is if your father's claim had been accepted, Dr. Barrington would have been the one who was discredited, huh?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Only more, Mr. Nelson. It's just possible that Barrington, not father, could have perpetrated this fake discovery.
Oh, that's pretty hard to believe. Dr. Barrington's position.
But don't you see? That's what makes it so difficult for father. And why this discovery is so important to him now.
It's Barrington. You better get below, huh?
Hi, Mike. Hi. Give me a hand. Glad we got here before you went down.
Why? What's wrong?
Well, there's nothing wrong. Job's over.
Over? Well, you don't have any proof yet.
As much as we need. Well, you're through as of now. You'll get a check from the society.
You can be honest with me. Why are you firing me?
I'm not firing you, Mike. There's just no more need for your services.
Okay, you're the boss. I take it that your report's going to say the claim is spurious, huh?
Of course it's spurious.
I don't know. This is only my personal opinion, of course, but it seems to me that you got to have proof that Dr. Prescott salted that cavern. That it wasn't somebody else who did the job.
For what possible idiotic reason?
Dr. Barrington, I'll give you a reason to disprove my father's claim.
Miss Prescott, why do you say a thing like that?
Save your breath, Dr. Barrington. You'll need it to explain to the society why my father's discovery will make you a fraud.
Well, I'm going to go down and clean out that pocket. And I'll report my findings to an impartial judge.
my word as to where they came from.
I'm sorry you feel this way. I'm only doing my job. All right, let's go to shore.
Now, do you believe me?
Now, those samples I picked up were phony. Somebody had to put them down there.
Dr. Barrington did, to protect his precious theory.
Well, we'll soon find out.
If I took Anne at her word, Barrington was responsible for those fake fossils in the cave. But he was no diver. How could he have managed it? My mind kept returning to that mystery diver that I had encountered before. The mystery diver was waiting for us this time. If I had seen him now, I would have recognized him immediately as Tino. Anne saw him. She whirled and shoved me aside. The spear grazed her arm. Tino came at me with his knife. He was a powerful man. I fought with all my strength to hold that knife of his away from me. It would have been comic if I hadn't been fighting for my life. Dr. Prescott was so proud of the new fossil he'd found that he didn't notice either Anne's distress or the struggle going on a few feet away. When he did see what was going on, he knew what to do.
You might as well tell us about it now. You're going to have to sooner or later. They might make it easier for you.
It was Dr. Barrington. He told me not to let you into the cave anymore.
Did Dr. Barrington tell you to kill me? Or was that your idea?
Tino, how could you?
Did Dr. Barrington tell you to put those bones in the cave, too?
Well, it didn't seem bad.
Dr. Barrington. The vanity of the man. He knew what this find would do to his reputation.
Apparently, this was the second time that he tried to pull a stunt like this on you, huh?
Yes, so that his own bogus theory would remain in force.
I really feel sorry for the man. His whole career gone down the drain.
Stolen career.
Father, don't waste your sympathy on him. He didn't mind ruining your career. And if it hadn't been for you, he would have. I don't know how to thank you, Mike. Mike, have you ever been kissed by a paleontologist?
By a paleontologist? Oh, I don't think I even know how to spell the word. I'll be back next week at the same time with another sea hunt story. Plan to be with us again, huh?